Rick Pitino, I really enjoyed the Rick Pitino press conferences this year because he's at the bowels of hell. Like, this vampire continues to resurrect his career, and now he's at a school that used to mean something, and he's trying to bring back the glory days, and he is Mike, that you're the expert here, that is aggressively dyed hair, correct? It's the only part
he's in the Hall of Fame.
It's the only part of the hair. It's the only part of his life that dies. We have an assortment.
Going for like an orange hue.
Crazy.
Well,
He's avoided the jet black and now just opted for an aging with grace orange.
Okay, you say aging with grace, but this is a champion. This guy was Calipari before Calipari. This guy could have been Coach K if you go, through the wiretaps and all the greasy underbelly of sneaker sales in that
Coach
sport.
Calipari fashioned his whole thing after Pitino, right?
Pitino is the original vampire mercenary used car salesman. I'll turn it into, I'll coach the Celtics. I'll coach the Knicks. I'm a god. And now he's working at the bowels of the system because this is the only job he can get. I can't believe he's back in the game. Like, I'm honestly stunned that he came and went. Like, that story of him in the restaurant, it should stick to you. Here is Rick Pitino after they've lost. Now he's just blaming everybody.
I don't think they move well laterally. I don't think they're going to pick it up in the next week. I think they're slow laterally. I mean, Sean Conway gives you everything he can. He's slow laterally. About 5 guys are slow laterally. Even the Celtics, when we lost, I've enjoyed every minute being a Boston Celtic coach. Didn't like the fact that we lost in that following year, but this has been the most unenjoyable experience I've had since I've been coaching.
Do you have any second thoughts of taking this job?
No, not at all. It's not St. John's. It's my team. I think they're very respectful. They hear, but they don't listen. It's taken me a month to get them to throw bounce passes. Actually, 2 months to throw bounce passes.
How else could it end for him except with a bunch of losing where he will make sure it's not his fault? Like, that's how it ends for the old coach who's trying to hold on to the old times. I mean, it's kind of...
I don't think this is it ending for Pitino. I'm not ready to close the casket on him, but that's a really terrible look. That's an awful look. I guess he's pretty calculated. I don't think he's losing his marbles or anything like that. I think he genuinely has run out of ways to motivate these guys, and he has resorted to calling them out in public. But when is that ever a good look?
But that's not a motivation problem. He's saying out here, like, what he's saying is these people aren't good enough.
These guys just did it to the Cyclones right now. Mike just did it to all the guys on the Cyclones team.
Let me tell you something. It's not my first year as a Cyclone owner. I've been there since the franchise's inception. I know what it takes to be a Cyclone. And many of the players on our team also know what it takes to be a Cyclone. We have brought back our core. We are just not living up to our standards. And, yes, do we have guys that are slow laterally? Absolutely. Absolutely. That doesn't prevent Manu from being one of the best backquarters in the world. Manu, when you're out there, go be Manu.
Be Manu.
Ikeda, when you're out there, go be Ikeda.
Pitino also brought in a bunch of these guys. Like I was reading an article where these players he's talking about were transfers from places that he brought in, and it's like, look in the mirror here, bud.
Well, he can't. He's a vampire.
That's right. That's right. That is that's exactly correct. I'm honestly, though, I am stunned that the sport has gotten dirty enough publicly that Pitino is able to slither back in through a back door, given what his scandals were.
Look, this could be just where we are on timelines, because my life as a sports fan, it's been dominated in the collegiate ranks by guys like Saban, Gino, Rick Pitino. And if you see all of them reckoning with what the NCAA is now and how the playing field to a very large degree has been leveled, you don't have full autonomy over the sport anymore where you can microwave a dynasty the way that Rick Pitino is used to. All of these guys, including Auriemma, who's been a really bizarre quote this year. If you followed anything about Connecticut's basketball season, Gino sounds like a totally different dude. All these guys that used to do it one way and maybe did it one way with impunity are starting to realize that the talent is being more distributed now, and they're having a very difficult time with it.
Pitino is in that job because he's a legend. There are very few resumes like that could even withstand that level of scandal so that he can make his way back through the bowels of what used to be a tradition-rich program back in a conference that mattered, but then the whole thing changed. Like when Belichick isn't working for anybody, you have a generational shift with value and young people, and it wouldn't be hard for me to explain to the audience why hungry 20 and 30-year-olds who learned a bunch of things about how to navigate the space now, or 40 years old, because that sport in particular is still kind of run by the old guys. That sport is still run by the guys who've always been running like the shadow labyrinth of the sneaker sales and the FBI wiretaps. Bill Self is still winning in that sport. It's the other sports that are changing.
Self is still doing it. He's probably one to keep an eye on as someone. He's also of a certain age where he can age into the next incarnation of basketball, even though many of his contemporaries have called Kansas out for how much they cheat.
Wouldn't you guys, though, say to me, like, Mike, you're in the bowels of this system. Wouldn't you say to me that you could understand how somebody Pitino's age might not know how to navigate the modern-day business labyrinth?
Yeah,
like to get the best, to have a competitive advantage getting the best players.
To tap into some of our previous discussion about the new generation, I really hate doing that, but there is a different mentality now and a whole different approach, and we're seeing it across all sports. Guys like Jose Mourinho, even Thomas Tuchel to a degree is struggling this. Antonio Conte. There are certain approaches. Bill Belichick, Saban, Coach K, who came from a military, he was a Bob Knight guy. There is a sea change when it comes to the mentality of sports, and I think it kind of underscores that this isn't something that can necessarily be taught. You either have that dog in you or you don't. And when it comes to scouting, if you want your team to reflect a certain personality trait, you kind of have to prioritize intangibles in ways that we haven't really seen before because generationally, players don't have that type of motivation ingrained in them.
Do you guys understand how difficult it must be for someone like Pitino to navigate the modern generational cultural shift of he's old enough to be their grandfather? It's not even their father. It's their grandfather. He might be old enough, close enough to be their great-grandfather. Like, how does that person
That's safe for Lou Carnesecca, who's still with us, by the way, Dano. 99 years young.
Is he really?
Yeah.
I mean, there were ways
That's
to
an
tap
upset.
in. There were ways to.
I was looking. I was
That's
like,
an upset.
Because I know they named the quarter after him. I was like, look, what if Rick can go in and really touch these young guys by getting a legend like Lou Carnesecca in the building? And then I realized he was 99 years old. And I was like,
That would be hard.
it's a great-great-grandfather.
Or you could lower yourself to just TikTok dancing in front of your team after they win. That worked for Coach L the last 2 seasons.
Does it not dawn on anybody, though, that it might be hard for someone like that to connect with modern generation and modern business and modern young people?
There books will be written on how to appeal to a younger generation because it does seem navigating that does seem to be a huge challenge for coaches. And you see a guy like Eric Spoelstra, be curious to see how he ages within his sport, but they also have a very distinct scouting nature inside the front office, and the head coach are tethered to the type of intangibles that they attract.